Yo, what's poppin'? All my peeps, it is I, your host with the most Renaissance man who always thinks he can, a champion of the peeps, Patty Pitts, back for another edition of the Raw Rewind presented by Pitts and Sara's Wrestling Show. And joined with me, as always, the best of the West you can't forget about, Sarah Marshall. What's poppin', girl? How you doing?
Hey, yo.
Hello.
Hello.
I am here.
Shh. It's
I am
Sarah.
here. What? Oh.
No, there you go. I was
Ugh.
just trying to give you a little. Why? No, wait. Well, I know why you would have that because she is that. But no, I at least she was on the show last night, Sarah. According to before we got going here, we had a nice little discussion about the current state of the WWE product and where we think, and it was getting a little heated. We were getting a little blood boiling and all that. So we had to come in here into the Art of Streams and talk about the fun part about what's going on right now, and that is what happened last night on Monday Night Raw. Sarah, it's a new day. Da-da-da. Yeah, there it is in Raw, and I know it wasn't the best Raw last night, like ever, but I think it was pretty damn good.
I thought it was good. Yeah. I thought it was better than the week before. I think, last week's was worse, I would say. This one was a lot. And of course, I loved that we got to see a lot of Judgment Day and a lot of Imperium. So, I mean, I can't be angry that my boys and my girl were on
Mommy.
all throughout the 3-hour show. I mean, I can't complain about that.
You know how much I love to go back and watch old, not only just wrestling shows, but old Raws and SmackDowns, especially now with a new era, new person running the show.
Mhm.
And going back and watching, I've been right now on the timeline, I'm around 1998 of Monday Night Raw. So we're at like the beginning of the Austin era. You have him doing the Authority beef, and this time it's with DX and Kane and Undertaker and all that. And I'm Sarah, the crazy cook I used to work with in my dad's kitchen just makes more sense every day, and that wrestling does repeat itself. And I'm seeing a lot of similarities from that era and into this one. And I'm mainly talking about, obviously not the people or the show itself, but maybe the way it's scripted, how the way the rundown is, the amount of FaceTime certain stars are getting compared to others. It's not just everyone gets their own 15 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm.
It depending on how important your role is on the show, you may get a few more seconds of airtime, and we're seeing that now with the two groups that you already mentioned. They were all over the show last night, even being intertwined in the bloodline.
I know.
It's great. I love it. I'm real happy. Let's kick it off though. I'll let you.
Yeah, before we start into Raw, I do want to talk about how today it has been a year since Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of Raw, which is kind of crazy that it's only been a year. It feels, I don't know, it just feels a lot longer than that to me. But you knew in May it was coming up, so it's finally here. And I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, talk about our thoughts on the whole situation, because obviously a lot of things have changed in that year in WWE. And my first thought is, or my first question, how do you think the women's division, the women's tag division has looked in the year since they left? Because that was allegedly, because we have to say allegedly, they've never spoken about this privately, like on their own socials or publicly, but that's allegedly what the reason was for why they left, was because they were the women's tag team champions at the time, and they were upset about the match that they were given and the storylines and all of this. So how do you think it's evolved in the year, good, bad, or indifferent?
it's good because you can see that they're putting in an effort. You know, the effort is definitely apparent when you watch the shows that they're trying to get the airtime. I mean, for instance, last night, I'll allude to it. I won't go into it now, but you know, you have Liv Morgan legit hurt on SmackDown, and instead of just oh, that's scrap, cutting room floor, we're gonna put in this segment here, they pivoted.
Yeah.
And they went with Rocky versus Chelsea Green.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking with the story, but going in the right direction. And that's something to me that if you don't have a moment like this with Sasha or Mercedes Moné and Trinity Fatu, if you don't have them, make that big risk and walk out, I don't think we have the emphasis that we're getting right now. So to me, it's going to be one of those moments where we look back on for a long time in wrestling lore and talk about how pivotal that moment was, even though we didn't think so at the time. But look where it's brought both of them. I would say Mercedes Moné is her own star, going over to New Japan, becoming their women's champion, and the way she defends it. And now she can, not only defend that in New Japan, but because of how shit works outside of WWE, she can show up in AEW. She can show up in Impact. And speaking of Impact, that's where Trinity is. So you're getting a little taste of what wrestling's like outside of that WWE bubble, which both of them really haven't had, especially Trinity, who came into this as a Funkadelic and now is,
a Funkadactyl. But she actually came in as an NXT person. She was on the original. She was on the original NXT with like when they had pros and whatever.
See, that's WWE.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
And that's not only a long time ago, but that's, your WWE training on professional wrestling. Now you can go out into Impact, and because of their contract, now you can maybe explore AEW. You may not be all elite, but you can definitely, wrestle there, and that's another world. So to me, it was not only a great thing for them, but also a great thing for wrestling fans. And I just say thank you for having the balls to do it, because look where it's brought us. I don't think we have Papa Paul and this regime, or if we do, it's in the very beginning stages of it. If this doesn't happen, this was that moment that like kind of sparked this whole new era of professional wrestling.
See, I'm not on the same page at all.
Really?
I think, I mean, I applaud them for doing what they felt was right, and they felt like they needed to make a legitimate statement by walking out, and it did make a statement, obviously, because it took the news world by storm, not even just like professional wrestling or news or sports news. It was everywhere. So I don't have any bad feelings about that. My disagreement with you is I don't think that the women's tag division or the women's division is significantly better than it was a year ago, because the women's division has already been on an upward spike basically over the last like 7-8 years. So that I don't know is like a drastically different than it was 365 days ago. There's definitely been times where, before Triple H came in, that it was like, okay, what are we doing? Because Vince was reverting back to his old days where he's cutting the women's segments, he's making them have 2-minute matches and stuff. And it was like, okay, what is going on? Even when he took over the Raw after Mania, that was what it was. There was like 3 women's segments that were cut. The matches were so short. My issue is still with the tag division, which we've talked about it a lot, is that they fail to develop legitimate women's tag teams, and they keep just putting random women together and then throwing them into the tag team championship, just the division, I guess. And that became frustrating because, like, look at even what they did, that, what was it, the tag team tournament or whatever. I mean, they had like Shotzi and Natalya together. Like, what are we doing? So obviously that's not something that can just be created overnight. It can't be fixed overnight, obviously. But I do think that there's quite a quite a way to go before I can sit here and say, like, no, the women's tag division has definitely come a long way since Sasha and Naomi walked out. I think that we're getting there, certainly.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind is, that it's being addressed.
It is, but I think it's just not fast enough. We should be, I feel, way further ahead than where we are right now for it to have been an entire year ago that this was like a huge thing. Because even the beginnings of Liv and Raquel, that was just a randomly paired two girls that they were like, okay, we want you both on TV, but there's not a whole lot going on in the singles market of the women's division right now. So let's put you guys together because you're going to be great together. People love you. It's like, okay, like they become more legitimate over time, but I would love to see more Kaden Carters and Katana Chances. Like, I want to see these organic women's tag teams that stay together and aren't broken up just because we're like, oh, well, I think that they should be single stars. Like what, I've mentioned it on here. The Iconics, they never should have broken them up. The Iconics were one of the reasons that they even wanted to bring in the women's tag team championships because they were a legitimate tag team. And instead, Vince was like, screw it. I don't care. Let's forget about the championships. Let's split these girls. Like, I don't know. I just think that we have a bit of a way to go still. And I mean, I would like to think because we know Triple H is definitely a champion for the women, as we know how he treated them in the NXT, Black and Gold era. So I'd like to believe that we can get on a better page in the women's the women's tag division.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you too, do you ever think that we will see them back in WWE in the future?
Yes.
Do you think both of them? Or do you see like one more so than the other?
If they will both be back in WWE in some shape or form within the next 10 years.
10 years.
Well, yeah.
You gotta lower that.
Like 5 years. I'll go 5 years.
I was like, Naomi's like, isn't she like my age?
Yeah, so 10 will still be around.
No, women aren't wrestling into their 40s. She's 35. Yeah, she's not wrestling.
Well, how old is Lita?
47. But is she actively wrestling? Has she been actively wrestling for the last 10 years?
And Trish didn't even. Yeah, okay.
That's what I mean.
I'll go 5 to 8.
Okay.
5 to 8. We'll see him because you need to see Sasha Banks back. This was her home. Well, the prodigal daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely because she was. I would say, you may agree with me on this, but I would say out of the 4 horsewomen, Sasha Banks is the best one out of all of them.
Okay, that is kind of controversial.
Hands down is the best wrestler out of all of them.
Okay.
So they need to, I have a lot of other thoughts that we could spend an entire episode talking about because I am such a Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks fan, whatever.
Money.
Because
it's supposed to be like her saying it's supposed to be like money. So she is money.
Yeah. I got that euphemism. So yeah, you need to see them back. They'll be back at some point. Obviously, they'll be inducted, or at least Sasha will, into Hall of Fame. So that's going to happen. Trinity is kind of married to one of the Usos. So
she's kind of married. She's only
okay. Well, she is. All right,
she's kind of married, but like not really.
Like pen to paper, legal things. She might be, but like. So but you can see that.
I think that we'll see them back. I almost feel like I kind of feel like there's a higher chance of seeing Mercedes or Sasha back than I think Trinity, because I think wrestling runs deeper in Sasha's blood than it does in Naomi. And I don't mean that as a dig, but I mean like this is something that Sasha grew up knowing that she wanted to do this. This was not the future that Naomi had predicted for herself. And so I think that that's more likely. Plus, she's 4 years younger. I do think that she, experienced the indies a little bit, but not really. She was a big like original NXT girl. So I do think that it's like what we've talked about with Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, them going out and experiencing the indies and other companies is good for them, and being able to travel around the world to do whatever they want and learn different types of wrestling. I think it's only going to be beneficial for her. And I think that whenever she does come back, she's going to be better than ever. And
she's going to be a megastar when she comes back. That's the point.
And so I think that she'll be back. I think that she knows that, like, or she probably, to me, it feels like WWE is her end game. Like, she doesn't want to abandon everything that she did before, because it's like is Mercedes Moné. She is Sasha Banks because of WWE. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, just go watch anyone who, to put a nice bow on this conversation, anyone who does not know about Sasha Mercedes' passion or love for wrestling, go watch the Heels episode on Peacock of Sasha Banks. She was on like our level, Sarah, of how into it she was as a kid growing up watching it. Even more so because she actually had notebooks that she took notes and shit on. I mean, the only notes I have are my nonsense shit.
No, but she would write down like match endings, like these people fought and then this person won, like
and how to make it into like, and when she was, you know, what she's a brilliant mind. But yeah, she'll be back one day. And let's get some comments before we get into.
I was going to do that too.
Oh my God, look at that, like, look, KK, telepathy.
So Richard said, I can see Sasha and Naomi return in the next year or go to AEW. If they choose AEW, they may never come back. I don't think they'll go to AEW. I honestly don't. If they do, it's temporary. I don't think that I don't think that it would be long term. But this is the thing too. Because of the way that AEW contracts and stuff work, they are allowed to go and perform for other promotions or for Ring of Honor. And so if you are a free agent, which Trinity and Mercedes can be at some point, they don't necessarily have to go and sign with AEW to wrestle somebody that they want to wrestle in AEW. They can do it on an indie promotion or a smaller show or, you know, some other thing. So I don't know. I don't know. I just see Sasha coming back. I know I keep interchanging the names, but to me, when we're talking about them in WWE, it's Naomi and Sasha. Richard also says he disagrees with you. Out of the horsewomen, Becky is the best overall. Charlotte is the best wrestler. Sasha was the best character, but Becky is the best all-around performer.
No, Becky is the best character, if anything, because Sasha's the best wrestler, hands down. I don't know. Sasha trained Japan style. Like, come on, like this girl.
She's learning Japan style now. She didn't wrestle Japan style.
No, but she's like, that's I would say, like, who she is. That she's not just someone who sticks to, like, she's very well versed, and that, like, she has a nice arsenal of moves and like styles, whatever, and she's expanding her knowledge of that with that and going outside. And just, if you look at the matches she had in NXT, I just think she's a better wrestler overall. Where you have Becky Lynch is the man, that character is just, she made it herself.
This conversation is too many layers to even discuss.
So many layers. You can do a whole goddamn episode on it.
Yes. And Nathan says, I want Paige to come back so we can see Paige versus Sasha. Do you agree? Not happening. I don't think that's ever happening. Paige ain't never coming back.
We will see Saraya versus Mercedes Moné at Wembley Stadium.
Money.
We will see Saraya versus Mercedes Moné at Wembley Stadium before we see Paige versus Sasha at a house show.
Well, I also don't even think Paige is coming back to WWE, so that's
she will never come back to WWE.
Yeah, she's not, which I'm completely fine with. If we're being honest.
So fine with. She did her thing.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual episode of Raw now that we're like nearly 20 minutes in. So
great little what do they call icebreaker? The icebreaker games. The nice icebreaker to the episode.
So I had a really great evening because my two favorite factions were on throughout the entire 3-hour episode. So that was really great. And I don't even know how to like break this down because there were so many things that were happening between these two throughout the show. So we start off with KO and Sammy opening the show, and I kind of feel like they're almost becoming the new bloodline because it feels like they are opening Raw far too often for my liking. I'm just over it.
What?
I mean, like, I just don't care. The thing is, I'm not saying anything against Kevin and Sammy. I'm just saying I'm not as invested in this Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn versus the Bloodline thing. I'm just like, I'm kind of over it because we've been dealing with this for so long at this point, and you kind of felt like we were putting, the cover on it at WrestleMania, and now we're like almost 2 months out of WrestleMania and we're still dealing with this, but whatever.
So you feel how KO feels, essentially. I'm just over it. So how KO feels right now.
I am like Kevin Owens all the time. That's just how I am. How he handles Riddle. It's me.
So I'm Sammy in this.
Yes,
I'm definitely
just like,
Sami Zayn.
But like, what if this good thing happens? And it's like, shut up, you're so annoying.
Be positive.
Yeah. So Judgment Day comes out and they interrupt them. There's a good back and forth. I love that Rhea stepped up to Kevin Owens when he was like threatening Dom. I was just like, yes, queen. So this set up their match for later, which ended up being Damian Priest and Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens and Sammy. So we can talk about that in a second, but there's so much stuff that is happening throughout this, which I thought was very exciting, especially for Imperium. So this was Gunther's debut on Raw because he was not there last week. He was busy getting married and spending a honeymoon in Italy and wherever else.
God, I love that man. Yeah. I want to hang out with him.
So first of all, I'm so glad we saw the full entrance. I love how they introduced this whole thing where they go down to the ring and just have Gunther stand on the announcer's table. I was like, Thank you. And I love that Kaiser, of course, introduced him the way that we have become accustomed to. I'm all about it. Gunther made sure that he let everybody know that he has been dominating as the Intercontinental Championship for the last year, basically, on SmackDown. So he is ready to take over on Raw. And that was when the Battle Royal started. And that was just filled with a bunch of random people. I
have your attention, please.
He said something like, I ask for your gratitude.
I ask
something
for
like
your
that.
gratitude.
Anyway.
For the ring and around.
I know, I'm like, I don't even know what he's saying, but I love it.
I want him to introduce me walking into work.
Yeah, I know, but it probably wouldn't be as cool because you're not the ring general.
Yeah, no one's really there.
So they were out to watch the Battle Royal, which was taking place to determine who Gunther was going to be facing at Night of Champions for the Intercontinental Championship, which I'm all here for. This is the type of stuff that I'm like, this is why I said it even recently. The Intercontinental Championship was my champion. Like Gunther was my champion because he was the champion on SmackDown. I don't care if we want to talk about Roman Reigns, he was never there. Who do I think has to me,
who's there for me? Okay, who was there?
He was there for me to be emotionally supportive during my mental breakdowns. Okay, so over Roman being gone again. But I do think that he has done such a great job at making the Intercontinental Championship feel so important and elevating it to a level where, you kind of were like, why would I want to go for the Universal title? I want to go for the Intercontinental because Gunther,
this fucking badass. Yeah,
he's amazing. I was so obsessed with him last night. I can't even tell you. I had to refrain from tweeting out all my feelings because sometimes I'm like, Sarah, you look a little crazy. You look a little crazy because he came out in the red with the jackets. They're all matching.
Red's like a sharp look. Like anyone wearing red, they're trying.
And a trench coat. And he had the fresh haircut, and he just stood there after he was introduced by Kaiser. He just stood there for a second, just soaked it all in. And I was just like, I am obsessed with you. So the Battle Royal came down to the final four, which I kind of feel like was, for the most part, most of them I think were pretty easily predictable to be the final four. Ended up being Matt Riddle, Mustafa Ali, Bronson Reed, and Ricochet. I can't tell you how nervous I was that Matt Riddle was going to win this, and I was ready to gouge my eyes out.
So close. I was just cackling. It would have been so funny.
No, I would have been so upset. I was like, I'm not even thrilled about it as it is. So we saw that Mustafa Ali won. They gave him this over the top Royal Rumble winner celebration with pyro and all this, and I'm just like, okay, I'm confused. So there are theories out there about why he won, and I don't want to get into it. But I want you to talk about how you feel, because you are actually feeling the positivity from Mustafa Ali about this match.
Well, all right. So what I get from this is that they're finally giving him a nice push after months and months of, I would say, crawling his way onto the screen in some way. Like whatever segment he was in, even if it was for 30 seconds, you were going to see Mustafa Ali in front of on your television. And he's good. Okay. Like Ali, I've been a fan of him since I was in college, and my boys and I were watching it. And one of my friends like, "Who's this guy Ali?" And we called him Staffy. And so it's been a long time since then, and we were a big fan of him. And now to see him get this push, it's nice because he has a lot of unlocked potential, I feel like. And Gunther's a good counterpart in the ring to really showcase your skills. Like obviously, I'll just spoil alert for everyone listening. Ali's not winning. Okay, that's not why they're having Ali go up against him. They want a good match for Night of Champions, and it will also be a match to elevate Ali to that next level, because he deserves it. He needs to be in that mid to like semi upper mid card, because he has not only the ring capability, but he's very good backstage and his mic skills too. So I am happy that he's getting that opportunity, and I like when Gunther has to fight guys who aren't Sheamus's or Drew McIntyre's. So you're getting a little bit more of that athleticism, and it shows off Gunther's athleticism as well, because that man is sneaky in the ring when it comes to, all those different types of movies. Not a high flyer, obviously, but like he can handle guys like Ali, Ricochet, all those in the ring. And the dichotomy of it, I'm very happy with going into Night of Champions, because it's not going to be just, big meaty men slap meat. It's going to be a good wrestling match.
So do you think of the final four, he was the right choice? Like that's who
I would like to see Bronson Reed.
My initial thoughts when you tweeted that too, I was like, eh. And then when we saw the final four, just because of who was left in the match at the time that you tweeted that, I was like, no, like there could be somebody else. And then I saw the final four, I deleted my tweet because I was like, no, that's what I want to see. Because there's nothing against Ali. I've just never been that invested in him. Not because he's not talented in the ring, of course he is. Oh, yeah, and he's fun to watch, but I'm just not interested in this, because to me, this just feels like it's going, like as I said to you last night, it's going to be an extended squash match. That's just how I feel, because the size difference, the power difference, like we've seen how Ali has been used in these types of matches before, where he's thrown around like a rag doll, and that's what Gunther can do to him. And I know that they're going to not try to have that happen, probably because they're not going to want to squash Ali, but it's like how he looked against Bobby Lashley is exactly how Gunther can treat him too. And so it's just like, okay, but we're not going to see that, because they don't want that to be the Intercontinental Championship match, especially when the Universal Championship and the WWE Championship aren't going to be defended. So this has to be like the match other than the World Heavyweight one. But even then, it's like to become champion, not to retain. So I hope it's going to be a good match. I'm not like excited about it. I mean, it's whatever. It's like another guy on the checklist for Gunther, like I'm just glad that he's getting a match and that he was featured so much on Raw. So after that, you thought maybe that was the end of Imperium.
Whoa, wait a second.
That was you thought that was it, but then you see Ali runs into Imperium backstage after he's all being positive and like celebrating his win with other people. And then he runs into them, and Gunther's like, congratulations. Just want to let you know, you are coming for my championship, blah, blah, blah. But congratulations. But I just want you to know that I pity you, because you have to fly halfway across the world just to lose a match to me. And Ali says the same thing back, declaring that he will be the one to embarrass Gunther by winning the championship. So I'm like, okay, cool. Now there's, it's not a developed feud, but I do like that they intermingled, because I think that they need to have some sort of I don't know, interaction over the next week, because the way that they picked an opponent for Gunther was very random. And so for anyone to be somewhat invested in it, I think that there had to be, a little bit of that in there. But then that wasn't it either. Then we see Paul Heyman shaking Gunther's hand backstage and then calls Roman Reigns.
What'd you think of the shot?
I thought it was cool. I
thought it was so cool.
So I was very intrigued by that, because then also when Becky was coming out to the ring, if you paid attention to behind her as she was walking backstage, Paul Heyman was talking to Judgment Day. I believe it was Finn and Priest. Yes. So you could see something was going on. Something was going on. So I thought it was cool that they involved Imperium in this. And we didn't get to see that until the main event, which was KO and Sammy versus Finn and Damian Priest, which gave us more Imperium also. So they're in the match, and at some point, Damian and Finn are outside of the ring, and that was when Balor is like, come on, Dom, come on, Rhea. So they come out. They eventually get ejected for getting involved in the match, because of course they did, and of course they would. Then Paul Heyman comes out, just being his little weird self with his phone. Yeah, making it very obvious. Just, yeah. And
call Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and then he would be the type to, he's such a boomer, like using Siri that often, like just
go to contacts.
Yeah,
like how many times you calls, Mitch? Go to calls, recent, like
yeah, it's so ridiculous. Then Imperium comes out a few minutes later, and you're like, what is going on? So the distractions apparently and the intimidation of all these people that came out appeared to work, because Judgment Day gets the win. And I have to tell you, I happy clapped when I saw that they won, because for a split second, I thought it was for the championships. I got so excited for like half a second, because it was a long match. It was like the last 25 minutes of the show. So, that's like a pay-per-view feeling match. And so I was writing at the same time as I was watching the end. So I think it slipped my mind. But I feel like this now opens the door for them to get a tag team title shot, don't you think?
Yes. This win was pretty much the stamp of approval that we are going to see Judgment Day versus KO and Sammy for a little bit after Night of Champions. And honestly, we could even see them invading or interfering in the match Night of Champions. So that's what that did a little bit. And I loved, as I have it on right now, on TV Bezos over there. What I loved about this goes right back to what I was saying about how I watch the old stuff, and how if you watch in the early 90s in this whole, beginning of the Attitude Era, I would say, organized chaos essentially is how they would end basically every show. Whether it was, the Ministry of Darkness, DX, the Brood, or Job Squad, if you want to get that crazy, of different factions coming out to help and be part of that main event. It's what we saw tonight, essentially. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I liked about this a lot, too, is that they weren't just out there because you want to get them FaceTime. Or, wouldn't it be great if we just had them come out in the... No. Judgment Day, they're fighting them in that match, clearly. You have Imperium come out because Imperium's going to fight them next week. And then you need that partner, whatever, which I have a theory that it's going to be Xavier Woods is going to be their partner. Either him or Staffy Ali will be their partner.
You don't think Riddle?
Just to connect. No, Riddle's gone. Riddle has no business with them anymore.
All right.
So, so to tie everything together, so I'm not talking nonsense. The main event connects to next week. All these people are still connected to you're like, well, why they're going to fight them next week. So it's still making the viewer watch and like that in the psychological way. Like, I need to see what's going to happen next week, all that. So I loved the entire main event, the culmination of it. I like how they lost because now there's a reason that they can challenge for the titles. They're not just saying it because they're the top faction. And then you also, if you want to really dig a little deeper, because we know we like to do that here in the Outer Streams, you're kind of planting the seeds a little bit for Imperium Judgment Day. because they're all connected to the bloodline, being held by the bloodline. Well, the bloodline's going to fall. That's the story that's going on right now. We are watching the crumbling of the bloodline, and when shit hits when it rains, it pours. That's the phrase. When it rains, it pours. You're gonna have a culmination of the bloodline versus Imperium, bloodline versus Judgment Day, and then Judgment Day versus Imperium. So that's setting that up in a way too. I don't know. I was a big fan of it. And I see the connections and I know what he's doing and I'm for it. I see the vision, Paul. I see it.
There's also a rumor. I don't know how many, how much legs it has or whatever, but there's a rumor that Imperium might get a new member.
Imperium?
Yes, and I'm not sure. I kind of like it that there are only 3 of them, because it's different. Guess who it is?
And it's not JD.
No,
he's Judgment Day, which that fits. That's a great fit.
We're gonna get into that.
We'll get into that, obviously, but I just want to clear that out.
It's the rumor, the name being floated right now is Dragunov.
No.
That's what I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just saying that's what some people are saying online. And I just, I understand it, but I think I like that it is Gunther and then a tag team. I don't know. I like it because it's different. It's smaller than the bloodline. It's smaller than Judgment Day. It's just like it's the the dynamic like the New Day had. I like that dynamic for Imperium.
Yeah.
So I would hate to see another person added because I don't think they need it.
I mean, basically, like Dragunov would feud with them more.
Well, and right? I feel like at this point anyway, why add a third or a fourth person when everything goes through Gunther as it is right now? Like there's, they're not even really showcasing Vinci and Kaiser as it is. So if they added a fourth person, then they wouldn't be like used that much either. And that takes them out of tag team championship competition because there's 3 of them. So, but since we were talking about JD McDonough, there are still rumors about him joining the Judgment Day. But we did get his debut somewhat last night. He was a part of the Intercontinental Championship #1 contender battle royal. The reason why I say I call it a debut is because I felt at first I was like, this is so lame. Like as one of the more highly anticipated names to be called up from NXT, I was like, really? He's just going to be thrown into this battle royal. He doesn't even get an entrance, doesn't get an introduction. And that was how things were going until he was eliminated. And then he made sure to go after Dolph Ziggler and just beat the crap out of him. And although that might sound or seem a little bit random because, I mean, on the surface, it's like really like Dolph Ziggler. But I do think that, we've talked about it, that Ziggler is in that era of his career, it seems, where he's going to help put guys over. So this is his way of doing it. And later he got the interview. JD McDonough was interviewed as he was leaving the arena.
You didn't even touch upon the vignette.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The interview was first. The interview was first. Yes, it was.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was.
No, it went the vignette into him.
It doesn't matter, leaving. But you know what? You're so impatient. Just let me do my thing.
Champ's impatient. Sorry.
Okay, so later he got an interview as he was leaving by Kathy Kelly, and she asked him, like, why did you go after Ziggler? Like, what was that all about? And he said, basically, because Dolph is incredibly accomplished in WWE. He's had this title, he's won Money in the Bank. So essentially, why not? Why shouldn't I go after him? And then we did, yes, we got the vignette of him. And then the rumors began to circulate even more that he was going to be joining the Judgment Day, which has been a thing for a while, that Judgment Day was looking to get another member, and I'm completely for this. I'm 100%, especially because it'd be 2 Irishmen.
We love our Irishmen here. Yeah. We love our Irishmen.
I just want to listen to them talk. Oh my god, the 2 of them and Damian Priest. Oh,
you mix a little Irish with the Hispanic, and
yeah, but his deep voice would be But anyway, I thought this was a better debut than what it was looking like originally. Like how it looked at first, I was going to be like, this is terrible. What did he do to piss people off? Because this is not the type of debut they usually give to a guy that was a top dude in NXT. But as the match progressed, obviously it made more sense. So I was excited about it.
I am so happy that JD McDonough is finally getting, some recognition here, because as watching NXT for, the better half of a year, I would say, he's been one of my favorite wrestlers to watch every week. Not because of how good he is in the ring, that's kind of known, but he's so good on the mic, and the way he carries himself as a heel, he's so perfect for Judgment Day that he's just a badass. I mean, to go after Ziggler the way he did, thought that was great for a debut. And to go off, the whole vignette into the interview backstage with Kathy Kelly, you can't just be the cookie cutter. All right, here's a guy, debut, wins a match, squash, whatever. It was perfect that they put him in the Battle Royal because, one, it's the second episode of Raw, right? After the draft. Yes. This was second, right?
Yep.
Second episode after the draft. You had Grayson Waller and Pretty Deadly already make their face known on SmackDown. Now it's time to incorporate the Raw people on NXT. How do you do that in a more creative way? The vignettes were perfect. And to have him go after Ziggler in that match, then give a vignette about how dark he is and how you don't, fuck with the ace. What is the Irish ace? I love that. I love that term.
Yeah.
So to me, this makes it more powerful. I think it was a strong debut, and you can tell that he's one of Papa Paul's kids by the way he was highlighted. And it's nice. I could really see him in, a few months being that guy that just out of nowhere, it's like, all right, who's Gunther's in the ring? And he's like, all right, well, who's going to go after my title now? And you just hear his music and you're like, yes.
Just imagine him and Finn tag teaming. Like,
oh my God. That'd be incredible.
And that would work great because for a lot of the time they were having Priest and Dom tag team anyway.
Yeah.
So if that was something that they were going to continue, then that gives Finn an option too. You know what I mean? Because it was always like one of them was left out, but it almost always was Priest, if anything. Or if it was a tag team match, it was always Finn. They always had Damian and Dom together. So we'll have to see how that goes over the next couple of weeks. I would love to see that happen. But obviously they're going to be doing something with him and Ziggler at first, which I am for, because at least Ziggler to most people is more of an established, like, legitimate person to feud with, rather than, I always use him as an example, but it's just because he's always used as a joke, but Tozawa, like, if they just threw Tozawa to him, then you knew exactly what was happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't really get that same feeling with Ziggler.
I think Tozawa left the building after running into Gunther.
I know.
Last night, so I don't think he saw Gunther and just straight ahead.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, okay." So then Miss Becky Lynch made her return, I guess, a week after finally coming back from being injured, allegedly. That's just what I heard. Allegedly. Normally, this is just an in-ring segment. It's just a promo. I try to not necessarily include these when we talk about it because, these happen every week. They're not always that great, but I thought this was actually really good. And yeah. Becky hasn't always been the best on the mic, and she still sometimes doesn't have the greatest night speaking. And I thought this was great. And the way that she set it up, it felt like, to me, that she really took it to Trish, but in a less obvious way than how Trish has been presenting herself as the bad guy. Because Trish was just going straight for the jugular, going for her, her kid. And like, that is like the most obvious low-hanging fruit that you could go for that most people will avoid because you don't talk about someone's kids, but she went right for it. And the way that Becky went about it, saying like, oh, thank you, Trish. thank you for this and blah, blah, blah. But it was very like passive aggressive. I just thought that was such a great way to go about it. And I really should have looked up what she was saying when she kept emphasizing it. I should have looked it up because I loved what she said when she was saying blah 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 it, when you know you are it, blah 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 it.
Very Jericho. It was very Jericho.
It was just so good. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it. So she does accept the challenge for the match at Night of Champions, which I love that it's a match that doesn't involve a title. I think that's pretty cool. My one concern about this feud, and I've mentioned it, but I want to see them interact more. So I really hope that they're both at Raw next week, which I would assume they will be because it is the go home Raw. But I really just want to see more of their interactions now because we've only really seen them on screen together since they've been feuding, I think once or twice. So I really hope that we can see a little bit more of that instead of them just, as I say, feuding with the camera. You know?
Yeah, you don't want to feud with the camera throughout an entire rivalry, so that is kind of tough. But it just make it work because they are who they are at this point, and you know that they're just kind of calling each other out, and it's that soliloquy type of thing. And I see that. You don't need them every week going at it, because imagine if they were there every week just saying the same thing back and forth to each other.
Yeah,
it's gonna get repetitive. So I like the fact they break it up there. However, next week you have to have them both, and then maybe a brawl. Like this feels like a brawl feud heading into the pay-per-view for sure. Like maybe even like, all right, maybe not a street fight, but this definitely gives vibes of like no DQ.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what ends up being the match that's like at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam. I think that there's probably going to be either like dirty tactics used in the match at Night of Champions, but I think they'll want to wait on the stipulation for a bigger pay-per-view, because I think that makes you even more excited, because especially with a stipulation like a no DQ or no holds barred or a cage match, whatever, not that they're not exciting, but when it comes to the women, it's even more exciting because the women don't get those types of stipulations a lot. So I think it would be cool if they held it off till Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. It depends on what Trish's schedule looks like too, and if she's willing to like go out of the country, because Money in the Bank is in London. So I don't know, but I do think that this does feel similar to what they were trying to do before WrestleMania with Rhea and Charlotte, because that feud was kind of like flat. But then once they got into that brawl, like a week or two before Mania, it was like, okay, you knew that was going to be a fight. So I think that we're getting to that point, like you said, with this. And so it's a lot more exciting than a typical, like, oh yeah, they're just having a legend in there because, oh, sure, like it brings people in. It's like exciting. It's like, no, this actually feels like it has meaning to it.
I would agree with that. Absolutely.
I did want to talk about this really quick. So Richard said WWE is letting their top performers make their own promos. Last night, I could feel that with Cody and Becky. Yes, I am going to be talking about Cody's again, because why wouldn't we talk about Cody?
A real great segue. Richard.
Yes, thank you.
Great job being that segue.
Cody came out and delivered another fantastic promo. This time he was talking about the story of the scorpion and the frog. So I said that I felt like it was kind of just like a silly story, despite the obvious analogy. But I feel like even though it may not have hit like as hard as he was hoping it would, like in the moment, I feel like it was a memorable.
It was very old school.
Yes.
It was a very old school promo. And you could, as soon as he said Scorpion the Frog, I pictured Dusty saying it in my head, like, you got Scorpion the Frog, baby. And you're the frog and try to get across the river.
What's really crazy to me is when you see these glimpses of what feels very old school with him that might remind you of Dusty. What I think about that's the craziest part is that Dusty wasn't super involved with how Cody trained and developed and learned in wrestling, but he has so many just like natural traits of his dad that it's kind of like eerie in a way, because you would have thought that he was one of Dusty's kids in NXT. You know what I mean? Like that he was trained and worked very closely with his dad to develop into who he is today. And it's like, no, I think, you know what part of it is? I think what we talked about is, I think for most of his career, maybe even up until not long after Dusty passed away, he was trying so hard to avoid doing anything that could be considered being like Dusty. He was trying so hard to not be Dusty's kid or like a failed second generation superstar, because I mean, like, let's look at like Curtis Axel. Like, it never worked. They even tried to have him be a similar Mr. Perfect, and it just didn't work.
Paul Heyman was his advocate.
I know, but and he still couldn't get over. So that's what I mean.
Incredible.
It's like, you know, sometimes you need to embrace it, and I feel like in this way, the way that Cody goes about it is perfect, because it's not in your face obvious. This is very much derived from my dad. It's more of like the subtle things, the things that like you wouldn't really notice unless you're one, in tune historically with wrestling, or two, you kind of pay attention to like the little things that maybe people who just watch wrestling at a surface level would notice, if that makes any sense. So, oh geez, I just hit my microphone. So anyway, I thought it was great. It's definitely a memorable moment, and hence why I even titled it Cody Rhodes talks about a scorpion and a frog. But I am looking forward to Brock being there next week, because again, this is another feud that has been very much like, oh, they're together here, and then for the next 2 weeks they're feuding with the camera, and then they're back. So now that we will see the build up even more to Night of Champions next week, I'm very excited to see their match, and I'm very curious to see how that one ends, because I don't know that I was expecting Brock to lose at Backlash.
I was definitely not expecting Brock to lose, especially in the manner that he did. So
yeah. So it just makes me wonder, how's the finish going to be this time? Who's going to win? We know that Cody should win, but sure. It's just difficult to imagine Brock losing 2 in a row to the same person, and it's not even for a title. You know?
He doesn't do that. Brock Lesnar doesn't do that, but maybe under Triple H he does it.
I know, and that's why I don't know. We will have to see, I guess. Then Rhea and Natalya. This is one of my more highly viewed videos on TikTok when we were talking about this last week.
Really?
Yeah, it's not, and when I say highly viewed, I mean like for my TikTok, because I'm so new to TikTok. But yeah, us talking about how it just was a very weird moment of Natalya walking down to the ring.
It was so funny.
Yeah, so anyway, so we got a little bit more of that last night, but I feel we didn't really get a sense of if this feud is actually happening, because it was just like a very awkward moment of Natty just being like, you don't give respect to your opponents. And it's like, what the hell is Rhea supposed to say to that? You know what I mean? Like, Rhea's gonna be like,
Rhea Bloody Ripley. Like, what?
I know. Like, she's gonna be like, why should I care? You know what I mean? Like, I'm the champion. So I just thought that was like, it's so weird. I'm like, so that's why she's feuding with you, because she's mad that you don't respect your opponents. I'm like, what is happening here?
It's very Bret Hart. It's very Bret Hart, girl.
But it's like, but she's not Bret Hart. That's the thing. Like, it'd be
she's
different.
The anvil.
It's just, I don't know. So I just felt like this whole thing was just a little bit weird, and I feel even more that I'm just not interested in this whatsoever. And like I said, we didn't even get a definitive answer on if it's going to happen or not, because Natty just said that, and then Rhea was like, you just came out because you wanted people to feel bad for you. You wanted your face on camera. You're welcome. And then she's like, if you ever interrupt me again, I will end your career. And then that was it. And it was like, okay, so where do we go from here? Is Natty going to be like, I'm so mad that you don't respect Dana Brooke. I want to beat you up. Like, what?
Yeah, Natty, tough hill to die on, girl. That is a tough hill to die on, that no one respects Dana Brooke. I mean, listen, I respect Dana Brooke, but you don't see me just waltzing to the ring to confront Rhea Ripley. And
but also not even like punching her. You just stared at her.
Yeah, like at least give a slap. Like I said last week, I know we don't condone violence, but this is a wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
But just give her a nice little slap, open hand palm across the face. Just let her know you're there.
Yeah, it was just,
it was weird.
It was just weird, especially because the whole point was her coming out to like save Dana, and then she literally did nothing. I don't know.
Did not save her.
So,
she fed her to the wolves.
I know. So, when I'm thinking about this too, this is exactly the issue that I felt like was going to happen once we saw how the draft kind of played out with the women's division, that the SmackDown women's division is jam-packed. And Raw, it's basically the top two are Becky and Rhea. So I'm not mad necessarily about them throwing Natalya to her, because it's like they have to give her somebody. But I just feel like there needs to be something done, because I don't want Rhea to have a bad title reign. I don't want it to be like, oh, she never defends it, or she's this, she's that, because her match with Charlotte at WrestleMania was so good. Instantly one of the best matches of the year candidates, probably at the end of the year. I would hate for her to not have a good title reign after that's how she won the title. And a lot of it isn't even because of her capabilities. It has nothing to do with that. It's that she can't feud with Becky right now. Becky's in the middle of a feud with Trish, but then there's nobody else at that level right now that could even be like a real challenger to her for the title. So it's like, I don't know. They just moved too many people, too many of the girls to SmackDown,
Yeah.
They
moved everyone to the Blue brand, which I'm not opposed to. Well, it's my show. I love it.
I mean, and they definitely needed to even them out, because before the draft, it really was heavy on Raw with the women and then not so much on SmackDown, hence why Charlotte came back and went to SmackDown, but now it's just the complete opposite. And I'm like, how did you guys not sit there and think about this when you were drawing up who was going where? You literally moved like Asuka, Bianca, like everybody to SmackDown.
You have the SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw, and then the Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, it's a mess. And then the last little part I wanted to talk about was another women's segment, which was, we found out that Liv Morgan is hurt, but from what I have read, it is not serious, so she is not supposed to miss that much time. Good. So she was supposed to obviously team up with Raquel to defend the championships against Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. That had to be scrapped because of Liv. And like you said earlier, they had Raquel versus Chelsea Green. So I was glad, like you were saying, that they did still keep it relevant and didn't just scrap it and forget that it was even a plan to begin with. I thought it was a great match. I love Chelsea's gear. I will never stop talking about how much I love Chelsea's gear. I don't care that it's random because she's wearing almost like a police, like captain's hat. I don't care that she's wearing tulle like skirt. I love everything about it.
It's like a ballerina, like little corset thing.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, not a corset. It's like a tutu, like a
tutu. That's the word.
I just called it tulle because that's the fabric that it is. But I love that she's gone to the darker theme to match Sonya, so it's all black. I love it, and it just looks good, and she's cute anyway. So Raquel. Adorable. I know I wish I had her body. That's my main thing, for being honest.
Lucky guy, Matt Cardona.
That Zack Ryder. Raquel, you know it. Or oh my god, you know what I used to sing all the time is Hosky. Oh my god, Hosky. Or
I remember we chanted Hosky and Eve Torres. Oh, that was awesome.
The funniest thing about that, remember when what was the social media app? Tout. I think it was when he posted a video of him putting Eve's action figure in the toilet and flushing her. Oh my god. That is still like one of my favorite videos. Or him being pushed off the stage when he's in a wheelchair.
Oh my god, that is one of the just saddest segments in Raw history. It's just Zack Ryder getting wheeled off by Kane.
And he just has to sit there and just like let it happen. Anyway. So yes, god. Raquel wins, which was great. It was a good match, it was longer than what they have been allowing Chelsea recently. Then as Raquel is going up and she's celebrating, doing her thing, then we get the wonderful returns of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, and Ronda and Shayna both just take it to Raquel.
Take it to the extreme.
But then I can't, because we knew this was going to happen, because I mean they were technically supposed to be the number one contenders to the women's tag team championships, because they did win that match at WrestleMania, but they were both injured, so they couldn't be, and hence why essentially Liv and Raquel won. But the way that Ronda was like, we're just going to keep attacking you until Liv can be back and defend the championships. Like, what, girl? What? Like,
Very
what?
bully. Very
It's just
bully.
like, it's just so annoying.
I hate
So
them. I can't stand them.
I mean, I'm assuming that at some point, whenever Liv is able to come back, they're gonna take the titles off them and give them to Ronda and Shayna, which I'm really disappointed about because they're the type that are there because of either their longevity in the company, which is like Shayna, who's been there for I don't know however many
Black and
years at
gold.
this point, and Ronda because of her name, and that's basically it. That's like the only reason that they're there because they don't get any reaction either way at this point. Like I don't even know.
Nothing.
I don't even know if you even made Ronda like a good guy again. I don't know if she would get much of a reaction the way that she did originally. I think people are so tired of her that I don't think that people would even celebrate her or be like, "Yay, Ronda." I don't know. I think we're beyond that at this point.
No, we are. We absolutely are. The lore of Ronda Rousey, the UFC fighter, has worn off completely.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're having her with Shayna Baszler is a good thing because Shayna Baszler is so awesome. She is that version of a UFC ass kicker in the business right now. The problem is that it's no one cares. You're having the women's version of Brock Lesnar come in right now, and that's the last thing the women's division needs. They want.
But the thing is, at least the biggest thing that separates the two of them, Shayna and Ronda, I'm not saying that I'm a fan of Ronda or Shayna, but Shayna wrestles. Ronda
I love Shayna Baszler. I love
Ronda
Shayna
doesn't.
Baszler.
So that's the problem too. Is like even if Ronda actually wrestled the way that she should be, I think more people would still not necessarily, they wouldn't be like sighing at the idea of her being in a match or her returning, because at least it would be tolerable to be like, okay, well, she's an okay wrestler. She's not great, obviously, because she hasn't trained as long, but she basically knows how to do like 2 wrestling moves, and the rest of it is just whatever she did in UFC. And I think that's a big problem and the biggest disparity between her and Shayna. So then it just makes Shayna look bad too.
Yeah, to me, Ronda Rousey hit her peak in her debut match at WrestleMania. That match, I really thought we were gonna get just the best version of Ronda Rousey, who is not only going to be that outsider coming in. Honestly, I had the expectations for Ronda that, Logan Paul or Bad Bunny, like that type of outsider coming in and just dominating, doing well. And not only that, I mean, her first match was with Kurt Angle and Triple H, and even Stephanie. I'll give Stephanie her credit. That match was fantastic. And then since the triple threat at Mania that main evented, it's really been all downhill. She's getting sloppy, and the new upcomer is coming up in the women's division. She's botching with them, and usually could point the finger at the newer person, but it's not them.
Charlotte couldn't even make the match look good.
That's the thing, and that's like, where I was getting to, is that even Charlotte,
she couldn't.
I left off my best of the 4 horsewomen, but that wasn't because I don't like her in ring work. I think she's absolutely fantastic, and you can tell that she's Ric Flair's daughter in the ring. And you have a flair that is like a name, a household name in the professional wrestling business, and she's like carrying you the entire match. It's not a good look. And the whole Liv thing too.
She couldn't even make the match like digestible though. Like Charlotte could not overcome the deficiencies of Ronda in that match. Hence why I'm sure a big reason why they went out into like the audience and stuff and was just like using the handrails and chairs and stuff like that was because it was the only way that Charlotte would be able to get away with doing something that didn't involve having to do wrestling moves in the ring, because you can't with Ronda. And I feel like I don't even know where it's coming from. Is she just resting on her name? Like her athletic ability we know is there, but I feel like she's not respecting the work that goes into being a professional wrestler, and it's not something that comes naturally to her, which is something that she might have a problem with, because maybe the way that they fought in UFC just was natural for her, and she was naturally good at it, and so she's not putting in the energy and the effort that she needs to in professional wrestling. And I can't blame her to an extent, because she's gotten away with it thus far. So if nobody is saying anything to her and is saying, hey, you really need to spend time at the performance center, you really need to train with this person, then why would she? Because no one's saying anything, and she's still main eventing. She's still being handed titles. She's still on Mania and other pay-per-views. She's getting the time off that she demands, because, she was SmackDown Women's Champion and said, hey, by the way, I'm taking the entire month of January off. And they just let her. So I think that's part of the problem too. But I don't know. I just don't know that there's really anybody that's going to be excited about this. I mean, I just hope that Liv and Raquel don't get completely obliterated in this eventual matchup, because
I hope they win.
The whole reign of them being the women's tag team champions will feel completely wasted if they just have them be run over Ronda and Sonya. Like, it's just not. Or Sonya. I wrote Sonya. Shayna. I wrote Sonya in there.
You don't even care. You don't even care that you're right. You are so fascinated with Chelsea Green and her attire, and then Sonya Deville, that you don't even care about Ronda. And here's the thing, I'm not coming at you. I agree with you. I don't care at all. I do not care about Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler being bullies backstage to get there. I'm over that style and, airtime, whatever. Like, there's just so much talent right now in the women's division that you could be utilizing. For instance, I mean, Zoe Stark and Candice LeRae.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, don't forget, there's Kaden Carter and Katana Chance that are still there. They haven't debuted yet. So, and I think that's a good point too, because I feel like when Ronda first came in, I don't know that she necessarily was needed, but it felt it didn't feel as forced at that moment, because she kind of just like fit right in. Like, it worked the way that they brought her in, but it was a very much a Vince move, obviously. And now that he's not around, obviously they're still trying to utilize her, because she is still a household name, whether or not you watch wrestling or not. People know who Ronda Rousey is. But like, who's saying it in the comments? Vodka in the comments is saying Ronda's a lore war off the moment she became a full-time wrestler. She gets no reaction. Exactly. And he also says neither Charlotte nor Becky or even Sasha were able to make a good match with Ronda. And that's the thing, is like, then you're going to pair her with girls that are more inexperienced, with Raquel and Liv. That I just feel like is just going to be a shit show. It's not going to be good, because like,
not at all.
If Charlotte, who is like the pinnacle of women's wrestling, couldn't even make this chick look good, then what? I don't know. It's just one of those things too, that if this was a different person who wasn't a household name, that didn't have the name Ronda Rousey, they would have either been sent back down to NXT by now, or they would have been released, because she's not gotten better at all. But here we are. We're just like, nope, she gets another title shot. So anyway, that was Raw.
That was Raw. And it was a good Raw. Honestly, for what we talked about, everything that happened, to me, it really feels like that Raw is on the right direction for this new era. And it's not like, it's not the same product every week, even with certain consistencies of certain people starting off the show or being part of, this part of the show. There's still a little bit of difference there, and it's at least entertaining, and it pushes the story along, which is the number one thing in wrestling that, keeps our attention, we'll say. We got NXT on. I turned on NXT as we wrapped up here. And who's that? That's my boy. Mellow is Money, baby. I've been binging his theme all week. Geez. When I get into a theme, I will listen to it on repeat. But like, how Mellow is Money. That's all I'm going to say. Mellow is Money. But yeah, that was Raw. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Raw Rewind. If you damn right, Micah. Sara is the money.
Money.
Yeah, if you this edition of the Raw Rewind, if you want to find other Raw Rewind streams, or even if you don't have the hour and 9 minutes and 54 seconds to watch all of our streams, you can go to Sara's YouTube channel and check out all clips from our stream, so you can listen to us talk about JD McDonough, or you want to hear us talk about how great Chelsea Green's ring gear is. All right, you can go check out those clips and other stuff on Sara's YouTube channel at Sara Marshall XO. And then to know when those clips go live, follow us on Twitter at Pat_Pitts and at SMarshXO. Instagram as well at Pitsy35 and at SMarsh_. Fun fact, this is not just a YouTube live stream. This is also a podcast as well. Pitts and Sara's Wrestling Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you can get your podcast. We are there. Go hit that subscribe button. Leave a 5-star rating and review, and also leave a comment, because we have some haters. Okay, we have some haters that at the beginning they left some comments. Since then, it's been changed, but it's fucking up our algorithm. All right, it's fucking up our algorithm. So please get us out of the weeds, all right, as we say, and help us get back into that top tier, we'll say main event status. Keep it consistent. There we go. That's how we do it. Thank you guys for tuning into this edition of the Raw Rewind. God bless. Remember that you can do it. All you got to do is try. We'll be back Thursday probably for the podcast. Peace.